Welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. Super excited for this week's guest, Toni Versic. Thanks for joining us.
It's good to see you.
So for those of the listeners who don't know who are you and what do you do?
Yes, I'm Toni Versic. I help male business owners achieve freedom, financial freedom, time freedom, mental freedom, and emotional freedom. The reason I do that is because I was making a lot of money, about $15 million over the last few years in business. I had no fucking time, constantly stressed, triggered, and sedating myself with drugs, alcohol, gambling, pretty much anything you could do to take the edge off, I did. And it destroyed my relationships, man. No time with my kids. Wife never saw me. When she did, I was grumpy and triggered. And I've seen that pattern play out with so many men where they make the money, they got the success, but they're trapped in this thing they fucking hate. So yeah, we use our freedom systems to help these men not just make money, but have freedom in all the areas of life and ultimately achieve true success in relationships and business.
How many people do you really see that have kind of just nailed one of those things?
Speaking from my own personal experience, very few, and I was one of those guys as well.
Yeah.
So when you consider what it means to be successful, there are different types of wealth, and there's financial wealth, right? But there's also the wealth of your body, your mind, and your balance, aka your relationships. I would say 1 in 20, 1 in 50, 1 in 100. It's very, very much up to the human. Struggle to have mastery over one of those areas. So they have the money, right? But they'll be overweight and they literally look down and can't see their penis anymore. It's a big fucking problem. People always think that's a joke. No, it's fucking serious. Or they'll have the healthy body and they'll train every single day, but their business is just this thing they hate. Or they'll have the business and the body, but their relationship with their partner is disconnected and they're not present with their children. So I'd say to have one of those things lined up and working well is fucking difficult. To have two, that's pretty challenging. 3 or 4, it's nigh on impossible for most men, or most humans in general, because we're not taught how to have clarity and balance in all those areas. It's a very small percentage of humans who actually feel that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What's been your journey with that then?
I realized this year how much I am lacking peace, which is a bit oxymoronic when I say it out loud, how much I'm lacking, but it's this idea that success is this thing that you have to achieve, right? So as a successful guy or as a successful human, what you're doing is you're chasing, right? And when you're chasing something, you're almost repelling it away from you. So you've got this money and this goal and this target that you're trying to hit every single week, every single month, every single year. In my case, I'm aiming for more money, more clients, more. And it becomes this disease of more. It's like an addiction. And the thing is, when you reach that more, you push the goalpost further back. You don't stop to celebrate what you've achieved, and you're stuck in this place of scarcity. So to summarize for me, it's been a place of scarcity and fear and doubt. And on the outside, it looks like success. You know, you got a nice watch, you smile, everyone sees you happy, you got money and all the things. But behind the scenes, you're stuck in scarcity. And with that scarcity, for me, there was a lot of fear. Like fear of, am I good enough? Fear of, do I deserve this? Fear of failure, which is totally irrational compared to the number in my bank account. Fear of losing everything, fear of things stopping working. Fear, uncertainty, scarcity, and doubt. Those things shaped my first 8 years of business. And I was too terrified to admit that. So I did the work, I did counseling, therapy. That was a bit of a waste of time. Then I tried working with companies like yours where I'd get transformational work. And yes, I'd work through some of those underlying fears, doubts, and uncertainties. Yes, I'd work through the scarcity, but I was never fully out of it and it wasn't who I was being. December 30th, 2024, my second daughter was born. We had our biggest month in business ever, $476,000 cash collected. Looks great on the outside. No profit, no time, hated my fucking life. So my journey shifted at the end of 2024 because I decided enough was enough. And that was fucking terrifying, right? You've built this business, you've built this behemoth, you've built this thing that's successful, and I put a fucking bullet in it. I said, I'm done. The catalyst for me, and everyone listening will have a catalyst when they realize it's time to draw a line in the sand. My wife, about 2 months before Kaya, our second daughter, was born, she pulled me aside after another stressful day, just completely fucking in a mess, pressure. And she said, I can't do this the same way we did it last time. Because the first 6 months of my first daughter's life, Talia, I wasn't there. I was stuck in the grind. And that pattern started to repeat. So I made the decision to kill it, put a bullet in it, and I spent 6 months rebuilding. And that's brought us to the place we have now where we actually have a business, and I have a business and a team and a life that gives me freedom. And I would say the opposite of the scarcity and the fear and the doubt that every successful person feels, there's the abundance. And I can honestly say for the first time in my life, for the first year of my life, I feel peace most of the time. I feel calm. I feel connection. I feel joy, fucking joy, like laughing with your partner, laughing with your friends, having fun. That didn't exist for me up until this year of my life. So it's really just this journey of going from scarcity and fear and doubt to abundance, prosperity, power, purpose, joy, connection, all the things we're working so fucking hard for. And it's like, how do we bridge the gap? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how it plays out. You know, when people think of scarcity, they often think of money, but you know, the more work that we do, the more evolved that we get, the more that it starts to shift. We start to, have scarcity of time. Now I just don't have any time left. It's not that there's not enough money. It's like there's not enough time. And then it's like then as we become more and more successful, we feel more and more alone. So it's like then there's not enough people like me. There's not enough people that are going through or at the level that I am. And then that's also why they start to search for masterminds, programs where they can actually be with people that are like them because they just feel alone. And, so many people are in relationships where that's the primary feeling that they feel. Even though they're married, even though they've got kids, they still feel alone in that. What's been your journey with shifting that different phases and experiences of loneliness as a man?
That's a great question. It's going to be a lonely journey when you choose to play a bigger game. It's just a numbers game. It's an 80-20 rule. When you choose to play a bigger game as a man or a woman, but specifically as a man, you're playing a game most people don't have the courage or capacity to play. So you are going to face bouts of loneliness. And that has been, again, my MO, my operating system for years because of the stories in my head. No one understands. My wife doesn't understand. My kids don't understand. My team doesn't understand. So I'll try and find people that can understand, but not everyone wants to play at that level. And you'll notice that the more you succeed and the more you grow and the more you level up as a human being, there are going to be fewer and fewer people that can relate to you or let alone understand you. For me, this year has really been a year of surrounding myself with the right people. A good way to frame it is a good friend of mine said that you have like a book of life. When you're young, you have so many friends and people you hang out with. The older you get, the more condensed that book of life becomes. So it's not just a journey of business and success and wealth. It's a journey of finding the right tribe and the right people and the right network that are on that same trajectory as you, which is why it's so fucking important to come to a mastermind or plug yourself into others. Another way to look at that loneliness journey is an amazing book called The Big Leap, and it talks about reaching your upper limit. Every single time you reach a new level as a man, you're going to reach your upper limit. And what will happen is when you reach your upper limit, you're going to create turbulence inside of your body. Best way to understand this is if you ever set a big goal or a big target, as soon as you are fully committed to that target, you're going to create turbulence within your body and your body will speak to you. It will come in the form of stress, tension, pressure. It might come in the form of self-destructive habits, sedation techniques, drugs, alcohol, scrolling. What's going to happen is you reach this upper limit and you have this ability to break through. Now, you either choose not to break through, and that's going to be dictated by your clarity, your commitment, and the control you have over yourself, but it's also going to be dictated by the people you're surrounded with. If you're surrounded with people that have broken through that upper limit, that place that you're trying to transcend and overcome, then you're much more likely to break through that upper limit. Now, some people stay stuck at that upper limit for weeks, months, even years. One of the most powerful things you can do to win in all areas of life is recognize the upper limits, recognize the turbulence within you, the emotions, the thoughts, the stories, and fucking rock it through. You do that while surrounding yourself with the right people, you achieve 5-10 years worth of growth in a year because you've got all the elements put together.
Yeah, I love that. So the name of the podcast is Courageous Leaders Changing the World. What's been a time that you've had to summon more courage than any other time?
I would say when I wanted to throw in the towel about 150 times over the last few years. And There have been two pivotal moments where courage has had to shine through. The first one would have been about 6 years ago. I was dealing with all the same problems I just shared: stress, overwhelm, drinking, successful in business, failing elsewhere. And as part of that, my sedation technique was whiskey. So it started with a whiskey every evening, then it turned into 2, then it turned into 4 p.m., then on 12 p.m. While I'm coaching men on how to be better, I've got a glass of whiskey in my hand.
Yeah.
So alcohol became my coping mechanism, and one night I was so shit-faced that I got into an argument with Rosie, my wife. We were arguing about stupid shit all the time, but this argument was about something that completely set us off. Instead of dealing with that argument, I threw my whiskey at the wall, shattered the wall, would never attack my wife or hurt my wife, but I was just so wasted, I wasn't coherent. And instead of dealing with that argument and resolving the issue, I ran to my balcony in Bondi and I jumped off the balcony. And I didn't do that because I wanted to kill myself. I did that because I was running from my problems. The next day I saw my wife while I'm in the waiting room at the ER to make sure I'm gonna live. I saw two looks from her. I saw this look of like love and support. She's my cheerleader. She's the woman who supports me in building my business. And I saw this other look of pity and disgust. It took a lot of courage to see that and to shift my patterns and shift my behavior and actually make a permanent change. That was the last time I was fully drunk. Then sharing that and being vulnerable with that, with my client base, with the world. I've realized for me, courage is really just the ability to share and be vulnerable with others on what your struggles are, and to have the courage to actually commit and follow through on what you say you're gonna do. The second moment I'd say is when I switched off my business. You know, we were making $4 million a year top line, maybe $1 million of profit. And when you have a team and when you have this thing that you've built that's your baby, you'll sacrifice for it for far longer than you need to, even when you know you're playing the wrong game. I guarantee there are so many people listening right now, they're not satisfied. They're not satisfied with their income, the amount of hours they work, the hustle and grind, the stress and pressure they're feeling. It takes a lot of courage to go, you know what, I'm playing the wrong fucking game and I get to choose which game I play. So when I turned everything off, I was terrified. Like, what if I can't pay my bills? What if I have to sell my properties? What if my wife doesn't feel like I'm a supporting husband who gives her the life I promised her? But often when you face these difficult moments, jumping off the balcony, putting a bullet in your business, or any challenge that a listener is feeling or experiencing right now, those moments I've found are typically signals to break through to that next level and transcend that upper limit.
How do we learn to recognize those signals before it becomes, it's the feather rather than the Mack truck?
Yeah, so there's a 4-step process that I would implement with anyone and everyone. Call it the 4 C's. So step 1 is having clarity. Step 2 is commitment. Step 3 is control. And step 4 is capacity. So the first step before you feel those signals is to identify them when they're not occurring. When you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you have challenges in your world, it's like you're drunk. You're mentally drunk. So if we imagine where you are today, 2025, 2026, whatever day you're listening to this, that's point A. And then we have what you want at point B. So this is your vision. These are your dreams, hopes, and desires. More money, freedom, peace, joy, connection, sex, all the things we want as human beings, like love. We have point A and point B. And there is a GPS that gets you from point A to point B. Now, from point A to point B, there are going to be a bunch of roadblocks. There are going to be mental roadblocks, limiting beliefs, patterns, financial roadblocks, meta-andromeda updates. There's going to be a bunch of shit that is going to prevent you from getting from point A to point B, the raw truth to the vision and the clarity you want. So we get to create clarity on where you are today and clarity on where you want to go. This sounds radically simple. I spoke at AREC. There were 5,000 people there, all successful business owners, real estate agents, Ryan Sahant, some of the most successful people in the world. And this is what I taught on. Where are you today in your body, your mind, your balance, and your wealth? And the best way to answer that question is, what's working and what's not working? Now, very few people are going to listen to this podcast and take an hour of their day to write down the words body, mind, balance, and wealth and ask themselves those questions because they're too busy. It's nice listening to the podcast. It's fucking hard doing something with it. So clarity, what's working, what's not working. And then we create a North Star. We create crystal clarity on what you want because everyone has desires. So what do you actually fucking want? That's step one. Step two is commitment, right? So committing to doing whatever it takes to achieve that outcome. Now, as part of the commitment piece, we also want to make sure that while you commit to achieving these goals, you do it from a frame of peace, purpose, presence, joy, and connection. Those are the keys. Peace, purpose, presence, joy, and connection. So it's not, this is what's not working, this is where I want to go, I'm going to burn everything to the ground, I'm going to ignore the signals, I'm going to fuck up my life to get there. It's like, how can I achieve all of this without the stress, without the sacrifice, without hating the journey? Clarity, commitment, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll also do whatever it takes whether I feel like it or not. I'll have a plan, I'll follow it. Now, when you do whatever it takes, when you get into a great routine, when you do the things required, whether you feel like them or not, you start to feel this word, which is control. What does control mean? You can control 4 things as a human: your thoughts, feelings, actions, and reactions. So if you're in control of your thoughts, it means you control the monologue up here, which when you consider what this does, this dictates everything. If you think something's a problem, your emotions are going to be stress, overwhelm, anger, fear. If you see that same thing from a different perspective, you might see it from a frame of peace, joy, and connection. Case in point, big tax bill comes in. Fuck, everything's fucked. Those are the words. Big tax bill comes in. I wasn't prepared for that. I get to own that. I'll figure it out. Calm. So you control your thoughts, feelings, actions, and reactions. And that what happens over time is the more you do that, you upgrade your capacity so that when you reach those upper limits and when you have those challenges, nothing can fuck with you. And we call this becoming bulletproof and unfuckwithable. Now, the question you asked me will relate back to this in a second. You asked, how do you identify those signals? Before you start identifying the signals, you got to go through that process. Where am I today? Where do I want to go? Clarity, commitment. I'll do whatever it takes to achieve my goals. You start taking control of yourself. You upgrade your capacity. The signals stop showing up. I didn't think that was possible. I still feel stress. I still have bad days, but I feel peace. Now, what happens when you don't feel what you want? You don't feel peace. You don't feel joy. Well, you bring awareness to it in the moment. So let's say you're having a bad day. Slow the fuck down, which is challenging to do if you're in the grind. Slow the fuck down, take a breath, and just ask yourself 2 questions. What am I thinking right now? And what am I feeling? In any given moment, there are thoughts going through your head, 80,000 a day roughly, and there are emotions and feelings throughout your body. So the best thing you can do is bring awareness in the morning. We have a journaling process, an empowered man. In the evening and throughout the day, slow down and just ask, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Now, if you understand what you're thinking and feeling, that's going to open you up to having clarity on your state. And when you have clarity on your state, you can address why you're feeling that way, what you could do differently to feel a better way. Anytime you feel a negative emotion, have a negative belief or thought, bring awareness to it, and don't ignore the fucking signals. Does that sort of answer your question? Does that make sense? It's a bit of a longer description, but I think it's all relevant to what you're asking.
Yeah, definitely. What do you find has been your struggle with doing that personally?
The excuses, right? So logically, do we know that when you're stressed, overwhelmed, or feeling a lack of peace, that you should probably take a step back? Logically, that makes sense. But emotionally, you fall back into a pattern. So what I've struggled with for many years is I know that if I just take a day off or go for a walk or separate myself from the business, I'll probably get some clarity. I don't know if you've ever gone for a walk or stepped away and you go, that's it. Or you sleep on it and you figure it out. But what will happen is I'll get so in the weeds and I'll tell myself the story, the belief that has been embedded into me since childhood, I can chill when I get it done. Or I'll just grind a little bit more. Or when I reach this target, I'll be able to relax. So because you're in the weeds, you're not at that 30,000 foot view, you end up being so consumed by whatever it is you're trying to achieve that you don't make the time to actually check in with yourself. That's been my biggest struggle. And the reason this year has been different is because despite how much I have on, I have a lot to do. I've got properties, I've got businesses, I've got so much shit on my plate. I'm constantly, day in, day out, making time for myself to zoom the fuck out and go, okay, I'm feeling a bit stressed right now. I'm not just gonna work more. I'm gonna take 2 minutes to fucking breathe, or I might go for a walk. I find that incredibly difficult. I don't know if you or any listeners do, but that has been a big struggle for me, is giving myself the fucking space to relax.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think it's called the reconnect effect. It's basically, you know, when you're consciously engaged in the task, then, you know, you get to a point where you just can't see any other solutions because you're too engaged in it. And when you know, go drive down the road or you have a shower or something, basically it allows you to disconnect with it, where you can actually just have your unconscious mind start to drop in what are other solutions, to be able to see things in entirely different ways, to be able to see solutions that are going to be actually much easier. Because again, you know, one of the things we were talking about before we started the recording is like, you know, when you evolve the people that you're working with and you evolve those kind of people, yes, it requires a new level of messaging, but also it means if that's a high quality person, then that just makes everything else easier, because then you don't have to micromanage them so much. You don't need to hold their hand so much. You don't need to do that, but it requires that willingness to be able to step back, to be able to take that 30,000, you know, foot view, to be able to zoom out and go, okay, cool. You know, who are my best people? Who are my best people to be able to work with? Who are the people who have the greatest lifetime client value and are the easiest to be able to work with? And most people are too focused on being busy to actually zoom out, because it's more important to feel busy and feel productive than to actually create change and actually get the results that they want. How do you take people beyond that need to be busy as men?
It's in our nature to want to grow and expand. As a man, that is what you're designed for. You're designed to hunt, fuck, and kill. It sounds crude, but like, we are expansion. We have created all the wars. We created all the children. The women obviously created the children, but we were the seed. So it's in our nature. So you're sort of fighting biology and your innate desire as a man to expand. I found that the number one way you can ultimately stop being so busy and be productive is systemize it. Treat your personal life like you treat your business. There are systems inside of your business that keep it together. So we have dedicated time for all of our clients, and something I live by, where we slow the fuck down and we reflect and zoom out. Every single morning, we ask those questions before we start our day. We power up and say, what am I thinking about? How am I feeling? What are my intentions for the day? We have dedicated time every evening where we reflect on the day. What happened today? What happened in my body, my mind, my balance, relationships? What worked? What didn't work? We plan tomorrow today. We literally plan the next day. We have 4 most important tasks, MITs, every single day. And then we have a do list. And we don't touch the do list until we go through the MIT list, most important task list. So most men and most humans are operating in this frame of chaos because they don't have systems. They don't have a process for how to win in all areas. It's very hard to win in all areas if you don't have systems. So having a morning practice, having an evening practice, having yearly, quarterly, monthly, and weekly targets. Most people don't set targets. I was in a room with 30 business owners. The most successful guy there is doing 80 million a year, like super successful financially. Everything else is fucked. And I asked him, well, do you set targets? He's like, not really. They're in my head. Well, how the fuck are you going to hit them? So there are many different systems. There's having most important tasks. There's having do lists. We've actually built an app, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars that puts it all together. But you've got to have some sort of system to zoom out and reflect. You've got to have that in your calendar and make it a priority. And during that time, you do a few things. We call it testy. Grab your testes, grab your nuts. I know it's a visual, but it'll make you remember. So TESST. You have sacred time that's scheduled in, and it's time, energy, and space to strategize and think. If you take one thing from this podcast, this will change your life. You create the time, the energy, and the space to strategize and think. What is a strategy? It's a plan. It's a plan. It's a battle plan to actually achieve what you want. So what you can do if you do feel like you're constantly working and you're busy, you feel like you have no time, and you feel like no matter how much you do, it's never enough, is just audit what you're doing. Create the time, energy, and space to strategize and think and ask yourself, what's not working? Where am I wasting my time? What's the highest leverage task I have? Am I working with my dream clients? Often the answer is going to be no, 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 no. Okay, great. Now you have clarity because you slowed the fuck down. From that place of clarity, point A, you can have what you want. Okay, I want these clients. I want to make this much money. I want to finish work at 4 p.m. every day. But you're not going to get that clarity if you spend another year, 2026, just fucking grinding. And I don't know how much your audience is stuck in grind and how much they're stuck in flow, but they're two drastically different positions to live life from. One destroys, one creates.
How do we start to create, a deeper sense of flow then? I think you kind of pointed to certain points of it, like creating, those feedback loops, that refinement cadence. We talk about it in terms of, creating rhythmic refinement. What is the refinement that you're doing in terms of, on a daily cadence, whether that's morning or evening or both? Or what is the quarterly cadence that you're doing of that refinement? What is the annual cadence? What are the things that you're looking at in all areas of life where you highlighted already, what's working, what's not working in each of the areas of life? What are some of the other pieces to be able to then create more access to flow?
There are a number of elements to create flow in your life. And the first one is looking within yourself and figuring out what that actually means for you. So how do you know if you're experiencing flow? Life feels effortless. It's fun. It's light. It's exciting. So the first step would be to ask yourself, when have I felt life in that way? Because I guarantee in the 30, 40, 50 years you've been on this planet, if you're listening to this right now, you've had a moment where you felt it. For me, it was at an event we ran about 2 years ago. It was a bit culty. And I looked up the definition of the word cult. It's a bunch of people who all believe in the same message, so I guess I run a cult, right? Long story short, we've got a bunch of men. It's the end of the event, and Len Ohola from Men's Medicine is there. He's like, men, let's get Tony up on the shoulders. Let's get him excited.
That's the best voice I've heard of him in a while.
Brothers.
I try and do his voice.
It's the
and
best
I'm just like,
voice
I
on
just
the
can't
planet.
get to that depth. I'm just like, brothers.
It's the best voice on the planet. So anyway, he's like, men, get him up there. And I'm up on the shoulders and all these men are fucking holding me. And it was the most culty thing ever. But it was a moment where I just felt deep purpose, deep joy, and deep connection. Both of the days my daughters were born, so July 22nd and December 30th. The first daughter was emergency C-section. All I remember is holding her when she came out. Then we did a home birth for my second daughter. It was, I won't get graphic, but it was chaos, but just holding this baby. The fourth moment is my wedding day. I cried. I don't cry often, but I'm an emotional man watching my wife walk down the aisle. So I've got these 4 moments that are embedded in my soul where I felt purpose, I felt peace, I felt joy. I bring those moments into myself every morning. I'll be 100% honest with you right now. I wake up most mornings stressed, overwhelmed, triggered, and afraid. I do. I wake up so often thinking, what if I fail? I'm running a funnel right now for this live event. I'm like, what if I fail? What if I lose? My default setting from years of trauma and beating myself up is that. So before I start my day, I power up. I move my body, and then I do some breath work every morning for the last 450 something days. I close my eyes, I breathe, I get out of my head, I get into my body, and in those moments, I pull in the flow. I visualize my wedding day. I feel those emotions. I visualize my daughter's being born. I feel those emotions. I step into the version of myself at that cultish event, hearing Leno's sweet melody, and I feel those emotions. Now, because I have clarity on where I am and where I want to go, I also create the vision. Like, you can do this in your own head. Everything that exists was created up here before it existed. So I literally visualize what it's like to have a room full of people at the event. I visualize $100,000, $200,000 profit in my bank account. I pull flow into myself when I start my day. So now when you face your day, where you will have inevitable challenges, you've already created the reality prior to facing those challenges. It doesn't mean you don't have bad days and get out of flow. It means you've already experienced what it is to have what you want. That would be one strategy. Another strategy I would say to experience flow more frequently is just create the space to create more flow. The whole of last year, I didn't take a day off, didn't go on a holiday. Now part of the process we teach our men is every December, build a business where you can take a month off and it grows. Every quarter, take a week off. every month, take a weekend away with your family. It's so simple, right? You have this sprint where you have your targets and you work fucking hard, and then you reward yourself with some time away to think and strategize. The third way I would say to experience flow is ultimately to be plugged into vision. Like, there is no stress or overwhelm when you are plugged into vision. When you truly believe in what you want and you know it's what you desire at your core, it doesn't become work anymore. It becomes a fun, challenging thing that you have to do each day. The ads that you're running that were stressful, they're just part of the journey. The team you have to manage that aren't performing properly, the setters and closers, it's just a part of the journey. One of my good friends and mentors, Goose McGrath, he runs the 12th fastest growing company in Australia, 120 staff, like chaos. He said to me that he can count on one hand in the last 5 years how many weeks he's had that weren't chaos, that weren't things burning to the ground. And he said, it's all just stuff. If you can really have that perspective, it's all just stuff. There are no problems, there are no challenges. There are just opportunities to learn and grow. Then it all becomes flow because it's all just stuff. And if you weren't doing the shit you're dealing with right now, it'd be something else. So just do the shit, it's all just stuff, enjoy it, and it's all perspective. Does that land?
Yeah, totally. I'm rereading Michael A. Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, and his other book, The Surrender Experience, talks about that. He talks about like all the experiences where he basically was just, in flow the entire time, and he just goes from one thing to the next thing that makes absolutely no sense, which was like buying a computer when they were first out. He like walks past a store, just buys a computer, and then turns that into, $1 billion business by just starting and flowing through all of those things and letting go of all the resistance, being able to watch his thoughts, watch the feelings, noticing all of those things over a period of time, and going through all of the things that are occurring in life that most people label as chaotic or painful or suffering, and all of these things that they take personally that then creates stress and overwhelm for them. And it just like washes over him because of that ability to be able to, watch his thoughts, watch his feelings, be connected to himself, and just allow that to occur, because then it just becomes normalized for people. It just becomes the expansion of your capacity to be able to actually be able to hold that, because most people are going to label it as that thing over here, which is chaos, which is suffering, which is fires to put out. But when that's become normalized in your system, it's just, it's just what's required, and you can actually start to expand out into that.
It's understanding yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's the number one skill you can actually learn, is to understand yourself. Understand what triggers you, understand what causes you to feel negative emotions, what causes you to feel positive emotions, and work on yourself. You are a sculpture that you're working on your entire life, and that's what makes life beautiful. Sure, there's a bunch of trauma and things that are going to really hold you back, and they might take time to unravel, but you get to create a masterpiece. And the only way you can do that is by understanding yourself. And the beautiful part about understanding yourself is your thoughts, your perspectives, what you just shared is all perspective. This guy had a perspective. Somebody else could have had the same challenges and not had the same perspective. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, what you do and don't do, your reactions and responses to external stimulus, all of that is within your control. There's no puppet master in your head. And when you truly realize that it's all within your control, and then you understand when you're not in control why and what's happening, and you work on it to upgrade your capacity, you win the fucking game. And that's beautiful. But it also takes a huge amount of courage, case in point to the name of this podcast, to take ownership of that. Because it's much easier to blame Zuckerberg or Andromeda Update or your team or your partner or the world for why you don't have your shit together and why you're not in control. When you blame, it's not on you. But when you blame, you have no power over the situation. So another thing that's super important is extreme ownership and radical responsibility. One phrase that has stuck with me for years is, there is no problem in my life I have not created or allowed. So my parents separated when I was 4. I've got a lot of daddy wounds and issues I've been working through. My father hasn't spoke to me in the last 12 months, and we won't get into the story behind that. I haven't created that problem, but I've allowed it to exist. When my sales team weren't performing and I'm scaling this business and I'm successful and I hate my life and I'm making no profit, I can blame my team. I haven't created the problem. I'm not the one fucking up the sales calls, but I've allowed them to fuck up the sales calls for months. There is no problem in my life I have not created or allowed. When you truly believe that, as soon as something negative comes up, you just tell yourself that. And you go, cool, what am I going to do about it? Capacity.
Yeah, I love that. It's very interesting as well. You can, there's certain things that play out in people's life in terms of the paths that they take. And the most common one for like men's coaches is, they have some level of dysfunctional relationship with their dad. I've talked a lot to Lino about this is, and also Lewis Huxtap always says this as well, you become the person that you need the most. And when you become that person, especially when, men's coaches, they become dads to all of these men that they never had because they have to actually create that deeper sense of healing with themselves and the masculine so they can actually become that empowering masculine person that they most yearn for because they didn't have an example of it. So they have to become it. And then they step into that in business, in relationships with their health and all of those things. And it's this interesting thing that kind of plays out of recognizing what actually creates someone doing what they're doing. And a great example of that is, most coaches become coaches because they feel misunderstood. They yearn to understand humans on an even deeper level, so they learn about psychology. They learn, why does that person do that thing? And they have this unending growth within them that becomes one of their values, that then they actually start to look at all these layers of understanding, of actually understanding the person. And why do they do that? Why do they do it like this? Why am I like this? And it's also why so many people in personal development are also people that now holding onto their label of ADHD, autism, all of those different things, because it allows them to be able to actually understand themselves and understand what they perceive as their place in the world, so that they're not abnormal, but then they also don't want to be normal at the same time. And it's that paradigm and that paradox that kind of plays out for people where they actually journey that thing where we yearn to fit in, but we also yearn to stand out in the same breath.
For sure.
Brene Brown talks about it so much, where she's like, she compares herself to the person she's swimming against in the lane beside her, but she's not comparing herself to the world champion. She's like, I want to be better than everyone around me, but I'm not going to be comparing myself to the best person in the world. And it becomes this dynamic that allows us to be able to start to look deeper at ourselves, understand ourselves on an even deeper level, and recognize who we are. And I would love to hear what your current expression of the things that you're dancing with in terms of the triggers that you're experiencing in your life of understanding who you are in the world at the moment.
There are constant triggers because I'm constantly reaching new levels. Like, you think you've got your shit together after you've done a bit of work. Like, if you've done any personal development and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaches and dealt with a lot of trauma, there's a certain point where you go, I think I'm good. And then life will just kick you in the dick. So a good example is, we turned the business off a year ago, and we rebuilt the business. And now our specific niche is helping business owners build wealth, but also have freedom in all other areas: financial freedom, time freedom, mental freedom, emotional freedom. So for example, I launched a new funnel, and I'm sure your audience are very familiar with funnels and ads and all that sort of stuff if they're coaches. And I had this expectation. I've booked this room for the 10th of January. I've paid for all the flights for my team. I'm probably going to put 30 grand into this thing. And then 3 days in, I don't want to do it. I don't feel like it. I get everything done to make it work. And we sell 4 tickets on the first day. And then day 2, 0. Day 3, 0. We're spending $800 a day on ads. So I have this expectation that I'm going to achieve my goal. Point A, point B. This is where I am today. I don't have this business the way I want it to be. Point B, this is what it looks like, 50 men in a room. Fuck, I'm not getting there. So I start to feel triggered. I start to feel stressed. I start to feel overwhelmed. That pisses me off because then I start to go down the story of like, am I good enough? Is this going to work? Yada, yada, yada. So a big trigger for me, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is unmet expectations. When you're a high performer, like, you expect a lot of yourself. So you set a target and a goal, and when you can see you're not getting close enough to that target or goal, you start to feel triggered. All of that comes from one word: attachment. Attachment to the goal. So one of the things that I'm trying to navigate, and I help a lot of my clients with, I'm not perfect with this, is how do I want more? How do I have more money, more success? Because I love money. I love success. I love property. I love all this shit. How do I want and desire that without needing it? Because as soon as I'm attached to the goal, It's almost like I instantly feel triggered. I feel that dysregulation in my body, that turbulence I discussed. And then I'm like laser focused on that fucking thing, which means my health goes a little bit, spend less time with my kids, spend less time with my wife. And then I'm triggered because I'm not getting there. Then my wife's upset because I work too much. Now I'm triggered at her. The triggers like fall like a stack of dominoes. So one thing that has really helped me this year, and I'm still navigating, is detachment. I'm going to create more wealth. I'm going to fill the room. I'm going to make it successful, but I don't need it. And if I don't get it, I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to let it affect me. I don't think there's anything wrong with the trigger in the moment of not getting it, but it's how long do you stay in the trigger? You know, I used to stay in triggers for fucking weeks, months, even years. Like everyone listening to this has had something happen. It might be an argument with your partner. It might be a business challenge. It happens within a moment. And then we'll carry that moment through, and we'll create that moment in the present moment, even though it doesn't exist anymore. We'll take this past moment and we'll carry it through our present, which stops us from being present. That's my biggest trigger right now. Is like, how do I come back to the moment? Because I'm carrying all this shit. I should be here. This happened here. I'm living in the past. I'm living in the future. It's like, fuck, bring yourself back. And the beautiful thing is when you master triggers and when you understand yourself, triggers don't last any more than like a couple of minutes. My wife and I haven't had an argument in 2 years. I haven't been upset about my business problems for more than an hour in the last year. The last 8 years prior to that, I could not have said that to you at all. At all. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember someone asked the Buddha once, you know, how do you never become triggered? He's like, I become triggered, but you never see it because it's so fast to alchemize. It's like a blink. That's as fast as it goes. Something comes up and I'm alchemizing it instantaneously that you never actually see it. It's not that we don't get triggered. It's that we alchemize it at the speed at which we do it because, you know, when we can do it in moments, then that's extremely powerful and we can keep moving forward. But when we take minutes, it's a little bit harder. And then when it becomes months, then it becomes even harder. And sometimes people don't actually ever go through that healing of that trigger, of that alchemization of it, for years and years and years, and they carry that all the way through their life, which is when they're just anchored to the past and stuck in the past and repeating the past, and they're copying and pasting the past and putting it into the future, and then they're just recycling that, and they're getting the reflection from, you know, it showing up firstly in business or then into relationship and then with family. And that's one of the things that we start to see all of the time is like, you know, you've got a different season of initiation. Sometimes the initiation of your growth of the next thing scheduled to be loved for you is showing up in business. And often what happens is people are like, I want it to be in business. I want to grow in business. But then their relationship with their partner has just gone to absolute shit. It's showing up there. And the irony is when they actually do the work there, it allows them to actually have so much more energy to show up in their business. Or if it's showing up in their family, there's that initiation in family when they're healing their relationship with their dad, with their mum, with the relationship that they had between each other that is actually starting to create that capacity for them to be able to show up in business at an even deeper level, because then they can start to recognize, you know, the older you get, the more that you start to parent your team members. And I was talking to one of my clients recently. I'm like, your children have just left home. You do realize that all of your team members have now become your children. You've got all this time and space. You've got all this extra time to be able to put into this because you've no longer got your kids at home. You're going to start to parent them. You've got to recognize that you're going to step into that role on an even deeper level and recognize that's the season of initiation. Yes, you've gone through the entire season of initiation with your family. Yes, you've gone into your initiation with your parenting. Now that season is just going to change.
And that's awareness. What you just shared is awareness. And when you have that awareness, like having a coach like you now created awareness of a blind spot. So think about what a blind spot is, right? You're driving on the motorway. You've got everyone you love in the car. You turn right, truck runs you over, everyone you love dies. It's a horrible thought. If you really sit with that thought, it's horrible. It's not because you wanted to hit the fucking truck. It's because it was a blind spot. So when you bring this awareness to yourself by having a coach and dealing with your traumas, you also learn over time, if you do the work, to do it on your own. Now, I think you should always have some sort of coach. I'm just hiring a therapist. I haven't had a coach for about 3 months. I'm getting a therapist. I've never had a good therapist. This guy comes highly recommended because he's going to help me see things I don't, like you did for that person. Now, to your point around the triggers and the traumas and the different areas of life, there's 2 things I want to share on that. First one is, it will never be balanced. I don't think the word balance is real. I think it's focused energy. So there are 4 core areas of life. There's your body, your physical energy, your sleep, your nutrition. That's your body. there's your mind. Your mind is your spirit, your emotions, and your thoughts. It's very simple. It's like what's going on that's not physical, it's more emotional, mental. There's your relationships. So with your children, with your team, with yourself, with your partner, and then there's your business. And business is very broad, marketing, sales, all that sort of stuff. So you've got to get really good at auditing all of these areas. Case in point, your client. If your client was very aware, and I'm sure it's she, right? She's becoming more aware, mothering the children. That person becomes so aware that the next time something like that happens, they're like, I'm doing this thing. I'm doing this thing with my team because my children left. How powerful would you be if you could come up with that on your own? You'd see opportunity everywhere. The second piece to this is the power of language. Language is everything. Like a language, we don't walk around going, we're not fucking cavemen. We define things with meaning. We are meaning-making machines. That's Tony Robbins. That's not me. That's a fact. Words have meaning. So if you can look at these triggers and babying your team and putting out fires, and you can just look at the language you wrap around those experiences, because they are simply moments in time, they are experiences, and you can shift the language permanently, the game fucking changes. For example, simple one, I need to do this. I need to get it done on time. Just change I need to I get to. Instantly, stress goes down. Instead of looking at life as triggers, problems, look at it as challenges and solutions. As soon as a problem comes up with your team, pick yourself up. Awareness. What am I thinking? Fuck, this is bullshit. No one cares as much as I do. No one's reliable. Okay, that's what I believe right now. Let's reframe it. Let's choose a different story. This is an opportunity to learn and grow. This is an opportunity for me to be a better leader. My team aren't performing because I've allowed them to not perform. It's the same problem. It's just a different set of words. And again, you control the words. In the app, we have a thing called a reframe journal. So we ask, what's the story? How does that story make me feel? It's often some bullshit that you don't, like, let me give you an example. Your wife leaves the dishes in the sink. You come home after a long day. Without realizing it, subconsciously, your mind goes into stories. She doesn't care. I've been working all day, yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool. How does that make me feel? I feel stressed. I feel angry. I feel unappreciated. How do we know that story is true? How many reasons could there be for my wife not doing the dishes? She could be suicidal. I don't fucking know, but I latch onto the story. We do that with our children. We do that with our team. We do it with our business. We do it with ourselves. So if you can identify the language you're using, the emotions it's creating in your body, and then choose a new story and choose new emotions and believe the new story, you win. So what do I get to do? There is no problem in my life I have not created or allowed. This is an opportunity to learn and grow. There are no problems, only solutions. If you believe those four things, like if you truly believe them, life becomes really easy and triggers don't last more than a few minutes. Triggers are normal. A trigger is an emotional hook. Imagine throughout your life, you've had these fishing hooks put into you. Dad wasn't around, hook. When my wife says this, it reminds me of mom, hook. When this happens in my business with my team, hook, it reminds me of the last team member who didn't, they're all hooks. You got to get really good at going, fuck, it's pulling on the hook. Wait, I can just take the hook out. Like, I can just go like this. And you dismantle the triggers until you become triggerless. And when the triggers do happen, they last minutes. And they're opportunities to learn and grow. Like, what if everyone listening right now got triggered or had a challenge from today, and every time it happened, they were like, thank you. This is great. Fuck yes. Another one. Tax bill. Shit. Wife's being a bitch. Shit. Husband doesn't listen. Fucking great. How good would life be? It'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most people have that, they don't have that view of triggers. They're automatically into resistance. They're into the hook rather than actually starting to see it from that expanded capacity, that expanded context, to actually start to see it for what it is. They only see one side of it rather than seeing it for the wholeness that is playing out there. And, when we can begin to, recontextualize it, yes, there is an experience over here that you could label as pain, suffering, or you can see it as just the solutions to all of the problems as part of it as well. And when we can actually start to zoom out and do those things, then it just becomes so much easier for us. And yet the dance is starting to expand out that capacity to be able to do it in shorter periods of time, because, a lot of people then start to then judge themselves. Oh, that was, I'm still getting triggered. It's like, well, yeah, that's going to be part of human nature. We're still going to get triggered. There's things that are going to come up. And what it comes down to is how do we develop that skill, expand our capacity to be able to have that occur in a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
And then we can actually start to recognize how far we've come. We get to notice what's different.
Can I make a point on that?
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, and I went off on a bit of a tangent, the idea of being mentally drunk. So most of us are operating at 20 to 30% of our potential because mentally we're not being the person who's deserving of what we want. We are mentally drunk. Most of us, at least from my experience, we're stressed, we're in scarcity, we're in fear, and we build success through that. So that becomes our operating system. It's like driving drunk. Your mind, your body, what you think and what you feel dictates the results you get. When you think about success, like conventional success, building a business and making money, they're very simple. They're not necessarily easy, but it's marketing, it's sales, it's delivery, it's operations, and a bit of legal and finance. Like how to build a business, how to make money is not complex. But why is it hard? Because ChatGPT is there. Everything you need to build a business. You hire someone like you can help them make an extra $1, $5, $10 million. So why don't we do it? Because we're mentally drunk. We're behind the wheel on cocaine and alcohol. We don't have our shit together internally. And then we expect to have these things that are our big lofty goals, but we're not the person who deserves them because we're not integrated. And I truly believe after coaching so many successful men, like some of these, I think the most a guy made was $250 million a year. He had the money, but he was mentally drunk. He couldn't control his triggers. He'd yell at his wife. He was constantly stressed. The business wasn't the success. It was one element. How do we bring that success elsewhere? You optimize this. You clear up the bullshit up here. And when you do that, business and life become easy, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that's been like the common theme for this conversation as well. It's like you just got to change the operating system.
Yeah.
Like the current operating system is giving you the current results that you want. It just really needs an upgrade. And that's been the core thing that I've been taking from each of the things that you're sharing. It's like, it's just change the operating system.
Yeah.
Upgrade it to a new level. You upgrade it to a new level, you're automatically going to start to break through that glass ceiling. You're going to start to level up in each of those things. And the operating system has slight distinctions for different areas of life. Because if you try and bring in the level of control freakness that gets you success in business, you bring that into your relationship. Let me know how it goes. Because
I can tell you how it goes, and I know you can tell me. If I show up after this podcast and speak the way I've been speaking to my wife, she'll tell me to go fuck myself. But that's emotional intelligence, right? Yeah. And to your point about upgrading your operating system, men in particular I found are much worse because I only coach men and I've tried coaching women. Women will typically invest in themselves much more quickly, especially when it comes to beauty or health or anything like that. Most men will wait until they burn out, break down, or get divorced until they listen to the turbulence and signals. I don't know what it is, but those same men will spend $150,000 on a Mercedes. We upgrade our phones every single year. iPhone never says, I'm not launching a new model. They pull out fucking 20 different models. Every year there's a new version, a new operating system, a new camera. Every vehicle, there's a new version of it. Yet we tend to, as business gets harder and life gets harder, we tend to sacrifice ourselves, go to the bottom of the barrel, and we don't invest time, money, or energy into ourselves. There's a reason why you run this podcast and you have a successful business, because I'm assuming you are your number one investment. Your partner's important, your business is important, but you upgrade yourself consistently, mentally, emotionally, skill sets, character traits. Your MO, your operating system is growth. And it didn't happen overnight. How long have you been doing this for? 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, 15 plus years.
Cool. So anyone listening, if you're struggling right now, or you're like, upgrade myself, sounds so simple. Do it for 100 days straight. Be consistent for 100 days. Tell me you don't transform. Do it for 1,000 days, 3 years. What happens when you've done it for 10? We underestimate what we can get done in a year or 2 or 5, and we overestimate what we can do in a month or 2. Same with this event. I'm like, I can get it done. It's going to be extend the fucking timelines. It's going to take me 12 months to figure this out. But I got to upgrade me. So why don't I have these goals? Because I'm not the one who deserves them. I haven't upgraded myself. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I talk about with people a lot is understanding gestation periods. You know, people expect results like instantaneously, and especially when you're starting something new, whether it's new messaging or it's you know, a lot of the things that we work with people on is like how to sell from stage. When they first start that, you got to go through the eating shit phase where it feels hard, where it's drudgery, where there's struggle, before you actually get to the flow. You need to be able to actually go through that phase first before you actually get that momentum. And most people, sometimes the trickery with this is sometimes all of the things that you've done in the past is giving you a certain level of success that it automatically means that you're already in that trajectory, that gives you, you know, that false sense of like achievement. Because other times when you start something new, it's just like you go back to the eating shit phase and you're like, but I thought I've gone so far already. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And part of that is recognizing that, you know, wherever we are is where we're meant to be. Wherever we are is where we're meant to be. And we can actually start to be present to exactly where we are, the things that we're facing off with, when we start to recognize that every single thing that is being reflected back to us, every single trigger is only ever the next thing scheduled to be loved. It's the next thing for us to alchemize, to be able to step into a new version of ourselves who actually to become the person who has that result. You know, when we elevate the people that we're working with, what happens? We have all the things that are in the way of that come up so that it can become alchemized, so that we can actually step into becoming that person, or become so normalized for it. If we're going into something that is not normal for us, then there's a normalization process and a gestation period of actually occurring so that we can actually become that person, which becomes so normal that it becomes, you know, old hat. And then we start to go through that process again and again and again and again and again. And when we can actually start to do that and be present with ourselves, with whatever season that we're in, whatever area of life that we're being initiated in, family, business, relationship, whatever it is, when we're in that presence of that season, then we can actually start to bring forth that new version of ourselves and actually evolve much faster, because we go through that cycle at a much faster level, rather than resisting wherever we're at, rather than trying to, you know, get disconnected by going to the future, or disconnected by replaying all the past failures and things that have occurred for us. And we can actually become so present to that. That's where the magic is. That's where the evolution occurs much faster.
Yes.
So when you're working with high level men, as we start to wrap up, what's the number one thing that you do with them so that they can learn to become more present?
There's so many things you can do to become more present. I would say the number one thing is just bringing awareness to what they're thinking and feeling. And men are motivated by pain. So it's like, cool, I've got all these stories about business and my marriage and my life and my balance and my stress, and I feel pressure and I feel overwhelmed and I feel all these negative emotions. Bringing awareness to it, and then just asking a simple question, like, what is the worst case scenario here if you continue down this path? Because for most men, they will wait until the worst case scenario. I watched a man about 16 years ago. I was at a boxing class, and he's right next to me, the big Samoan guy, and he went onto the floor, and I thought he was having a laugh, having a joke. It turns out he was having a heart attack. So they rushed us from one side of the room to the other, and we watched them performing CPR on this man, and he's literally dying in front of us. And I broke down. I was like young. I think I was just coming out of teenage years, because I thought about how unfair it was that here's this guy who told me he was there to lose weight for his family. He's dying. And I found out that on the way to the hospital, he passed away and left a wife and 3 kids behind. The reason I share that story is most men don't expect that to happen to them. But if you continue to operate the same way, if you continue to put yourself last, if you continue to grind and hustle your way to success, what is the worst case scenario? Like, play it out. Most men don't want to, I don't want to think about it. Think about it. What happens if your wife leaves? What happens if your children don't remember dad for being around? They just remember him working and yelling. What if you lose your assets? What if you fucking die tomorrow? But tomorrow's not promised. So if we can link the pain of the worst case scenario, it sort of brings us back to perspective that the only thing that really matters is the here and now. And the only thing that matters is family and love and connection. Like, when you really think about it, why do we work hard? For freedom. Well, why do we want freedom? So we can spend time with the ones that we love, doing whatever we want, whenever we want. That's why we work. We don't work for money. We work for freedom. So when you realize that, and there is a process to this we teach, we've got routines and rituals and goal setting. When you really get to the truth, the raw truth as a man, and realize what's truly important, that in itself grounds you. And then over time, you learn how to make that your operating system. To your point about the triggers and presence and everything you just shared, my daughter is about to turn 1. And she started walking like 3 weeks ago, but she's been standing for about 2 months. And when a baby stands, what they'll typically do is they'll stand up and get all happy and they'll fucking fall over. And she smacked her head so many times. Now imagine my daughter stands up for the first time, she falls over and I'm like, you fucking idiot. Don't ever try that again. You're retarded. You're never gonna walk. And for the next 18 years, she just rolls around everywhere because she doesn't learn how to walk. That's how most humans operate when it comes to learning new skills. That's how most humans operate when it comes to being present. They try something once, they try and change, they try and upgrade themselves, they try and build the business, they try and launch the funnel, and guess what? It's hard. So they quit. So do 1,000 repetitions. The next time you're not present, take a deep breath, zoom the fuck out, ask yourself, what am I thinking about? How am I feeling? Guess what? The first time, it probably won't help you. Then get back to your shit. Do your grind. Then the next time it happens, do rep number 2. Then the next time it happens, do rep number 3. Throw in some breath work. Start scheduling your goals. Start putting in time and energy and space to strategize and think. And you start doing 1 rep, 5 reps, 10 reps. You come back to me after doing 1,000 repetitions of the work, and it is work, and tell me you haven't improved. Fucking tell me. It's not gonna happen. So it's a combination of things. I know your question was, how do you get them to presence? But I think it's all relevant. You do the fucking work. You realize what the worst case scenario is. If you take one thing from today's podcast, get a piece of paper right now, write down body, mind, balance, wealth. What's not working? What is working? Spend half an hour on each domain. Ask yourself, what do I want? What's the vision? And then ask yourself, what's the cost of not achieving it? Like if you want to live average and be normal, fine. But if you want greatness and if you want growth and if you want true success in all areas, it's going to take work. So then commit to doing 1,000 repetitions of the work. And you'll wake up in 2026, December, we're recording this 2025, December, and you'll go, fuck, I couldn't have dreamed of being this man 12 months ago. That makes sense?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the perfect thing to wrap up on. Yep. What's the best way for people to find you?
Probably on Instagram, Toni Empowered Man, Toni, and then Empowered, EMPOWEREDMAN. You guys probably put it on the screen anyway. Send me a DM. Let me know what resonated with you. I got nothing to sell you. I don't have any products I'm currently got on the market. Just send me a DM. Tell me what you want to talk about, what you resonated with, what you need help with, and hopefully it added some value to you.
Epic. Thanks. This has been fun.
Thanks, bro.